welcome. I'm really excited to have you all on tonight. I mean, for those who don't know, I'm Luke Bourgeois. I'm the founder and high performance director at Voyager Tennis Academy, and really excited tonight to have Nick Scott, Nick from 135 Tennis Analytics, I guess formerly GT Stats. Nick, yeah, really excited to obviously go through the French Open. But first of all, yeah, welcome, Nick.
Hi, Luke. Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
It is, and I guess for those tennis enthusiasts like ourselves, it's been great to watch some French Open. Even to me, I had a first this morning. I got to watch live French Open at a reasonable hour with a night match. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, they've only just put those lights in over the last couple of years, and I don't think they finished until about 1:30 this morning. It was so exciting to watch that, and to see that after 59 matches, those two can still produce something like that. Two 35-year-olds, brilliant.
Yeah. It is. And again, for those that don't know Nick, obviously Nick is our analyst, obviously works at the academy, also works with pro players. I know guys like Jordan Thompson, and more recently players like Thanasi Kokkinakis. Obviously, we saw the impact that Nick had with Thanasi doing so well over the Australian summer, winning his first tour event, obviously winning the Grand Slam as well. And more recently too, one of my former students there in Alex Vukic as well. So it's been great to see how Nick's been able to help so many of our Aussie pros. And again, a lot of the academy players, they know Nick obviously because he has been a big part of what we've been doing out there. So yeah, I guess without further ado, Nick would look to kick it off. So, but I guess sorry, a little bit of housekeeping before we do start as well. As if you do have questions, guys, this is aimed to be interactive. So just hit the chat box down the bottom. So fire away. But yeah, we'll obviously try to aim to either answer it if it's I guess if it relates to what we're talking about at the time, or we'll come back to a Q&A at the end. So over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Luke. I'm really excited to be with you. I must admit to being a little bit tired. I've been watching a lot of the French Open, getting up fairly early in the morning, and it's been raining in London. So the Aussie boys have moved on from the French Open. They're now in London for a challenger. So we now have Thanasi and Alex Vukic and Jordan Thompson all playing challengers on the grass. They've started their grass court season. But we are here to talk about the French Open and what's going on there. And it really has been the emergence of a few really gun young players. And I know we've got some players in the room who are 16, 17. They're only a few years behind the likes of Rune, Carlos Alcaraz, Iga Swiatek. So we're going to have a very brief look at some of the things that they're doing and what they're doing well. And Luke, as a player and as a former player and a coach, you might like to comment on what some of those guys are doing that distinguishes them from the rest of the field, because it is just amazing to watch how they play.
Yeah, most definitely.
Just to let everybody know, that there is Carlos Alcaraz playing as a 14-year-old 5 years ago in France. He's playing doubles in Tarbes at La Petite Art, and his partner, you can see down the bottom of the screen there, is in fact Holger Rune. All right, now these guys have already, at the age of 14 or just under 14, they've got some highly developed skills, and they don't really play with a lot of fear. Neither of them made it past the semi-final of this event in singles, but in doubles, they look pretty good.
Yeah, 100%. It's so good to see, isn't it, at that age, because it is a 13 and under event, that at 13 they're actually serve volleying in doubles and developing that skill set, which really, because I know it's one of the things that we're really big on encouraging is developing that well-rounded game, which enables you to play at the highest level. But so good to see people serve volleying in dubs. Don't see it enough.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as well. There have been a lot of people who haven't thought that a 19-year-old would ever reach the top 10 ever again after my era of Boris Becker being a 17-year-old Wimbledon champion. And all of a sudden we've got two teenagers who are challenging the top of the game.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, I know that you even saw a lot of the stats there with the age of the top 100 on the men's side and the women's side, and the age of the top 50, and then top 20, and then top 10, and how it just got older and older and older. And it is great to see, and I guess have a look at what they're doing to enable that to happen.
Yeah. So tonight we are going to have a look at some stuff on at the French Open. Really, it's the same game. And what I mean by that is we're seeing, being 135, we're seeing a lot of similar patterns at the French Open that we would see at any other Grand Slam or event throughout the year on both the women's and the men's side. We're going to have a look at what the players are doing on their serve and on return. The return is an interesting one. We're seeing on the women's side a bit of a change to their rally length and what's been going on this year as opposed to past years. I'm sure Ash Barty, while she's been watching overnight, would probably like to be there because there's not a lot of variety running through some of the matches on the women's side. We're going to focus in on Alcaraz, a little bit of Holger Rune, but also Iga Swiatek, and what they probably do better than most at their age, what they've really developed. Even for someone like Carlos Alcaraz, who has admitted that his favourite surface is actually a hard court, not a clay court. For a Spaniard, that's a bit unusual. And with bleary eyes, we did have a good look at Rafa versus Novak this morning. I hope everybody watched. And I'm pretty sure that the majority of the room would have been happy with the result. Luke, you?
I know when we were running our morning session, I kept looking at my phone and we were sort of calling out the updated game score, and most of the time, it was pretty positively reviewed for Rafa. But now there were a few Novak fans, which was good to see. But the overwhelming.
I stupidly told a friend when it was 5-3 to Novak in the fourth set, he's serving for the set. I said Novak will win from here. So the analyst gets it wrong sometime. I thought Novak would serve out the fourth and have the legs to go through all 5 sets, but we are going to have a look at exactly what Rafa did differently. You would think those guys have now met 59 times, and that doesn't include any exhibitions, and it includes a lot of finals, Grand Slam finals, 59 times, and it's 30-29. And even after that sort of, that amount of tennis, I hate to think how many points that is, they are still coming up with ways to strategically play each other. And Rafa countered one of Novak's strengths brilliantly this morning. It was just gorgeous to watch. Yeah, moving on.
Let's get started.
All right. So what we're seeing is a lot of 3s and 5s, the same as we would in any tournament, in any event.
Nick, just before you go on there as well, I guess
yes.
For those that don't really know what the 3s and 5s are, if you want to just do a quick top line of again, because I know obviously we're really familiar with the framework of how we can explain and articulate what's going on in a match, and that's I think it's a really quick conversation there, which would be well and truly worth it.
Sure. For those who aren't aware, we're called 135 analytics because we're looking at 1, 3, 5 are the first 3 shots that the server plays in any given rally. Okay. So we look at the 1, the 3, the 5, the 1 being the serve. We look at the 2, the 4, the 6 being the first 3 shots by the returner. And then from there, we're looking at 7+. So those are our 3 metrics that we look at in order to profile players and have a look at what's going on in a match. Now, 135, that's so an unreturnable serve, a shot 3 put away, which we're seeing Stefanos Tsitsipas do here, or into a 5th shot, which might be rush the net. It's the most common time to see a volley in tennis. That accounts for at least 50% of rallies on both the men's and women's side. So it's worth emphasizing. A lot of people think that clay court tennis is all about the grind. It's not anymore. It's very different to the way it might have been 40 odd years ago. So
even less, whereas the old sort of throw the ball over the shoulder, big kick serve, sort of retreat, and then start that sort of the extended rally. It's it's changed. Yeah.
So we are seeing a lot of these 1, 3, 5 sort of rallies. Stefanos Tsitsipas against Holger Rune, serve wide and then 3 into the open court. Iga Swiatek. Now this one, I put this in for a reason. She served a fault and then is still able to play 3 shots off her second serve. There's a very good reason why this is in here. All right. Holger Rune, 5 shots. 2, 3. Closing the net down.
That's such a
Holger
common
Rune on
hardcore play
3,
there
very
too, isn't it?
similar pattern, except this time he's got to go wide to his backhand. Now, Luke, can I just point out, do you have any comment to make about Holger Rune's balance as he moves across to this backhand?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you just look at that base, don't you? You can just see how still he gets at contact, obviously even at post contact there. I mean, it's such a key part. I mean, especially on clay. I mean, it literally is one of the most important things to make sure if you're balanced, you can control your racket head. If you obviously can control the racket, you can control the ball.
Yep.
And it's just something they do so well. I know it was actually having a conversation earlier today where you see a lot of Aussie players that sort of try to embark on pro careers, and the first thing they do is they head over to Europe to sort of start trying to make it. And it's actually quite interesting because you see us Aussies, and I guess what was our best performance this French Open from the Australian contingent?
Would have been Koob's second round, a qualifier.
Yeah, when Demons
or Dasher made the third round in the women's.
Yeah, exactly. So it's second and third round there, and it's where obviously those Europeans have such, and South Americans have such a massive advantage just on how they move on that, and of course we know how well it sort of transfers to hard court as well. So but it's absolutely critical to see that really strong base.
Yeah, don't tell anybody I said this, but Thanasi's coach described him as a giraffe during his match.
I think there's Maria Sharapova too. She said she was a giraffe on ice.
Yeah. And clay is a great leveler of a surface.
It is.
But there are players we profile who are, they're hard court players, but they lean towards the grass. That would be a Jordan Thompson. That would be a Nick Kyrgios. Thanasi's actually a hard court player who leans towards the clay, but didn't put in his best performance. Martina Trevisan last night, great 5-shot pattern from her. She beat Leylah Fernandez, 2 lefties playing against each other. Leylah Fernandez as well, backing up from the US Open last year with a good performance. And then Rafa and Novak. This was only recorded this morning. I apologize, the screen is slightly smaller, but that, I'm just going to play it again because that is the most typical Rafa pattern you'll ever see. All right, so these are the sorts of patterns you see on any surface at any tournament, the French Open, the Australian Open, any of them. Novak with open court 3 and Carlos Alcaraz with, guess what, Luke?
Yeah, no surprise. Oh, wow. Serve volley.
Serve volley
Love
from
it.
the 18-year-old. 19, sorry, he's 19. I'll just play that again just for everybody's enjoyment. All right. And that is not the first time he did it. I showed it to you on the doubles court. There it is on the singles court. They're all your classic serving patterns. They can be used on clay. They can be used on a hard court or a grass court. All right. So that's what's happening on with both sides. Don't think that clay is the long grind that some people say that it is. It's different, yes, but there are some very similar patterns. Where we are noticing a big difference, and we have in the past, but it's even more so during this French Open, is that it's in the second serve play. On the men's side, the returner on second serve is generally still trying to neutralize the serve, okay? They're trying to get into the rally, take it through to 7+, particularly, Rafa and Novak standing so far back, so does Tsitsipas. Holger Rune has been standing up closer, but Carlos Alcaraz versus, I don't know if anybody saw it, Carlos Alcaraz versus, it was actually against Tsitsipas, was back in the bleachers. He was almost standing on the linesman's foot. So very different ways of playing in the men's game, but the server still has that advantage. On the women's side, it really has been a battle of the second serves, and more so, it has been for a long time, but more so now. I just thought I'd point this out. These are some of the big matches that have happened over the last week. And whoever has won the second serve points has generally won the match. Coco Gauff over Sloane Stephens. That was last night. It was only 6-4, 7-5, but Coco Gauff absolutely took it to Sloane Stephens on the second serves. Kudermetova beat Keys 48-30. Camilla Giorgi only won 21% on her second serve. Naomi Osaka in her first round loss 41%. And Sasnovich versus Raducanu, that went 3 sets. The one that bucked the trend was Martina Trevisan last night at 31% against Leylah Fernandez, although that was fairly close. So what we're seeing on the women's side are points that look a little bit like this. You can see where Camila Giorgi is standing to receive Daria Kasatkina's serve. It's way inside the baseline, and we are seeing more so than any other tournament we've seen before, whether it's clay or hard court, more of this. This is the second serve.
Match hasn't played a lot of tennis on clay.
Crunch. Now, by the way, Camila Giorgi did lose that 6-2, 6-2, but we're seeing a lot of it. Now, what that means is that as opposed to on second serves, generally you see the returner try to neutralize the serve. All right. So they're trying to neutralize the service advantage and move into a longer rally. What's happening a lot with second serves, largely because, and Luke, you probably have something to say about this, there aren't a lot of big kick serves at the moment. All right. Ash had a very good second serve. She's not there. There aren't any really big kick serves. A lot of these second serves are just being rolled in.
Yeah, it's 100%. Like, I mean, what you want to look for, and again, I know one of the core themes of working with all our young upcoming players is that concept of on the first serve, really trying to make your opponent play. Obviously, on that 2-4-6, and on the second serve, it's really taking that opportunity to make them pay, and that's where you really see it. There's just no energy on the ball. Again, Ash, you mentioned, did such a great job of getting energy. Obviously, having some variation and variety as well, which made it quite hard to sort of step up in the court and be ultra aggressive on like that, like obviously what Camila did there. Because yeah, that's one thing I'd sort of encourage, because I know, Nick, you're old enough like me to remember we grew up, we were probably one of the most common phrases I ever heard when I was coming through was "you're only as good as your second serve."
Right.
It was, John Newcomb was just literally so famous. He kept saying post match, and you just hear that sort of that phrase. It was consistently had, and I don't know that sort of stat, because I think statistically, I know seen some stats in the past there that one of the most important factors to determine your level is your percentage of points won on second serve.
Yeah.
And it just really is, because I know there's some of our girls that are in this, and I'd really encourage you to invest time on finding ways to be able to hit different spots in the court with obviously different spins, because this is where you can see. And again, obviously having gone down to the under 12s and 14s nationals, we had 14 players that were down there competing. It was just such a big difference between the players that really dominated and the players that were dominated. Obviously on the clay, we know there's more time. And that's where, again, it's just so important to be able to get that ball to have some energy off the court, and again, so you can be neutral.
What I'd encourage everybody to be doing is two things. Number one is hit spots on serve. Doesn't matter whether it's first or second. Those spots have to be hit in the box. You have to have some sort of strategy, girls and boys. You are looking to hit spots in the box. The other thing that you need to be doing, and Luke and I talk about this a lot, is what's your plan when you step up to that line? What are you going to do with shot 3? What's your plan? It's the sequence of shots that your serve into the corner of the box, return comes back, where is your 3 going? So it's that sequence that must be practiced. Yes, the serve has to be practiced, but if you can practice that sequence as well, you'll be a long way ahead of the game, because from what we're seeing, a lot of the girls at the French Open this year are putting down a serve and then letting their opponent start the rally, letting the returner start the rally. So what happens, and what we're seeing more of this year than ever before, is the server actually has to neutralize the returner rather than the other way around. All right, so just a couple of examples of that so that people are aware of what we're talking about. This is Trevisan serving. This is her second serve against Fernandez, and Fernandez is just trying to dominate. Trevisan is trying to neutralize what she's doing. Now that's great defense, but you can see that Leylah Fernandez dominated right from the return. Here are a couple where the server may have managed to neutralize what the returner is doing. Swiatek versus Zheng. You see there that from the start, Swiatek is dominating the rally. Zheng makes it back in with some good defense, and then the rally goes 7+. And last one, again, Swiatek and Zheng. All right, so neutralizing what the returner has done to the server in this case. And I think Iga Swiatek does that better than any. But what I'd love to see more of is what Ash was very, very good at doing, which is being able to dominate some of these rallies as the server. And that's what she was able to do very, very well. And she's not a big server. She just had that good kick serve and she hit spots with her second serve. So that's something that we're really seeing a lot of at this French Open.
And I think obviously there's the serving perspective, but I think, and again, that's something I'd really sort of encourage, because you can see the strategic play here from the returner is having that aggressive mindset. It can just put so much pressure, because I think that's where definitely, again, because a lot of our athletes here are quite young, so you want to build those skills, like what we're talking about there with Alcaraz, who obviously worked on his serve volley from a really early age. But there's also the strategic play of actually looking to be so dominant on that second serve, because again, it is one of our core themes that we're really working on, is really being able to make people pay. And that's what you can see there. So again, I'd really encourage, because anytime we see a short ball in a rally, as a coach, you sort of say, hey, look, let's jump on it. But you think about it, these servers, they have to land the ball short. And if they're landing it short with no energy on the ball, there's a great opportunity to take control. Because I know for me, having played some great returners over the years, it can really sort of get into the back of your head when you're stepping up to hit a first serve, even that you feel like, hey, if I miss this person's all over me. So probably two angles to look at that as well there, Nick. Obviously from the building side of both the server and the returner.
Yeah. So just looking at Emma Raducanu was unable to, so Emma Raducanu, everybody would be, I would think, aware that she has not carried on her US Open form from last year into this season. She's had a lot of trouble, and she seems to be lacking a lot of penetration through the court. I did mention at the webinar that we had last year when we studied Raducanu and Fernandez, that one thing that happens and has been happening with Thanasi is that when you have that sort of run, people start looking at you and they try to figure out ways to beat you. And one area where Raducanu has had some problems is that she doesn't have that same power on the return, and she certainly doesn't have the same power on her second serve. So there's the first serve, but a lot of the patterns against Emma Raducanu in this French Open, and she lost this one 1-1 in the second and third sets. It's just way too short. She's not able to do much with that, and she gets crunched. So she's not able to neutralize what's happening against her second serve. She's not hitting spots the way she did at the US Open. Equally, her return game off second serves, that is a second serve, doesn't have the same penetration. And in that case, Sasnovich puts the ball away. So what we're seeing happen is that the server is having to neutralize the returner in the women's game. And it also means that we're seeing a lot more 7+ rallies on the men's side. So those guys, particularly when the player is standing back, they are getting into a 7+ rally a lot of the time. Luke mentioned that sometimes you don't quite know. Did I have it here? I thought I did. Maybe I don't. Holger Rune was one of the few players who was standing up to return second serves. He was doing it against Stefanos Tsitsipas. And I know I've talked to you, Luke, about this sometimes. The more a player stands up, I know a double fault is the most common. It's an unforced error every day of the week. But sometimes the way a player returns serve in the past can influence how the server serves in the future and can put pressure on them and draw double faults. Oops. Luke, are you there?
Yep. Got me?
There you are. Yep.
Yep. No,
100%. It really can. That's one of the things. Obviously, what we're encouraging you to do is understand that you win matches by building pressure, and it's just there's so many good ways to really take it to your opponent with your court position, obviously with the mindset, with your strategy, and really making them uncomfortable. So you can see obviously the different strategies there to do so. Which is obviously it's really good to have those images there to see what they're doing.
Can I also point out that a lot of returns on the girls have been making, a lot of them are really heavy returns, but quite often they're not going in. So there are a lot of mistakes on return as well. So it's really important for both sides, whether it's the boys or the girls, to practice serve and return, to make sure that you've got both sides of that game going. So you've got your 1-3-5s and you've got your 2-4-6s going well. Okay, let's have a look at Monsieur Alcaraz and Miss Swiatek. What has made them so good? They've had a huge rise, both of them. Swiatek to #1 in the world, Alcaraz to the top 10 before the age of 18. He's won 2 ATP Masters 1000s events and has been brilliant. I'll just show a few rallies, and then I'll come back to where I believe they are just that good. So Swiatek, right? Just watching that again, she uses angle, and not just on a ground strokes, beautiful angle on her serve, but also her angle on similar sort of pattern where she plays that back behind her opponent, and then her movement around the court. I want to play that again, and I'd like everybody in the room to focus on how she gets up to this short ball. How she first of all draws her opponent forward with the short slice, and she gets up to this short ball so beautifully, is the only way I can put it. Just looked like she had all the time in the world. Okay. Getting on to Carlos Alcaraz.
I think before you do, mate, it is one of those things. I know, again, when I spent a lot of time with Roger Federer, and one of the things Roger, I remember, was key to say. It's where we sort of probably the emergence of the key of the return, how the return just totally changed. And obviously we know how much the game used to be dominated by serve. And Roger was, I think, sort of paraphrasing him here, but he went on to say that the serve used to be the biggest key weapon. He went on to say that for him, it was now about speed. It was speed around the court. And I know for me, with the kids that I work with, we always talk about their circle of effectiveness, is how much of the court can you actually cover and hit an effective shot. And that's where, again, by being able to cover so much court, it just makes it so difficult for your opponent. Obviously, it can force them to overplay. They start challenging their shot selection, start challenging their patience if they can't really see an answer there. Because again, you look at, I mean, to me, there's only 2 ways to hit a winner in tennis. You can either hit the perimeter fence or over it, or get it to bounce twice. You don't always necessarily have to hit it hard. So it's just great to see such a smart player there manipulate their opponent around the court and literally just tap a ball into the open court for a winner.
Yeah, I'll come back to the 3 reasons I think that Alcaraz and Swiatek are doing so well. Just a few rallies or a few points from Carlos Alcaraz.
Yeah, wow.
Just brilliant.
Yeah, unbelievable to watch.
Can I just point out how far back he is to return the serve? This is where I said he's on the linesman's toes, and he was there all day against against Zverev. I'd probably, if I was his analyst, I'd like him to come in a little bit more sometimes, because that's pretty defensive all the way back there. There he is, way back.
Zverev goes to the open court play.
He just does things that are a little bit unexpected. And I just wanted to put this in to point out how good his movement around the court is. He's up the far end. Oh, sorry. I'm going to play that again. Start from the, I accidentally pulled it. Now, for those who play, that is a ridiculous shot. I'm going to play that one more time, and I want everybody to look at how far out of court Alcaraz is before he plays that winner. That's his finishing position for the previous shot.
I think it's key. It's not just that point, the previous point you showed there as well. And that's what you sort of look at. I mean, as a coach as well, I can only imagine the amount of times he's practiced that reverse crossover step to cover that amount of ground. I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing to see what he can do. Because again, if you can't if you can't hit a winner against someone because they cover the court so well and they don't make too many mistakes and they hurt you like that, it's just a recipe of just being unbelievably good.
Yeah. So what makes them so good? Well, there are a lot of things, but the three key things for me that make them so good is their, first of all, shot selection. And it's not just the right shot, it's also the right shot at the right time. Okay. So Carlos Alcaraz he has brilliant drop shots and they're obviously very well practiced. You also saw earlier on tonight, I showed a 3-shot pattern where he served and volleyed, and he did it at 15 love. I'm yet to see him do it when he's down in the count, so to speak. So he picks his moments to surprise his opponent. He's not one-dimensional. He has all sorts of weapons and arsenal that he can draw upon to play this sport. And it's part of the reason that Ash Barty was so very, very good. She had variety, and that's what makes Carlos Alcaraz so good. He's not just a one-trick pony. Same with Iga Swiatek. Her shot selection is first rate. All right, she doesn't use a drop shot all that much, and it's something that we've seen less on the women's tour this year as well. At the French Open, the girls aren't playing drop shots, largely because there aren't too many slice backhands out there. Second thing, related to shot selection, you saw Alcaraz's crunching forehand down the line. They don't have fear, these two. All right, they pick their spot, they pick their time, they play the shot. Okay, and they move on if they don't get it right. All right, but they don't have fear when it comes to making that shot. Largely, I think, and you know, Luke can talk to Roger Federer, talk about how Roger Federer felt about this, I guess. This is a game of percentages. Tennis is a sport of percentages. You have to understand that you're not going to make every shot. You are not going to win every point. But if you play if you make the right shot at the right time, chances are you're going to win more matches than you will lose. Luke?
Yeah. Again, and I think in probably the current climate we're in as well, I mean, for our Aussie guys that are here, it's that shift to UTR. It's really one of the things that we see so much now is so much fear and anxiety in how people play. And that mentality that they're seeing is they're almost playing for their opponents to lose rather than to go out to win. Yep. And that the game catches up with you very, very, very quickly, where if you can no longer run as fast as people can hit it, that doesn't work so well. So that's one thing that I'd sort of say. It's always not about being the best 12 or 14-year-old in the world or in Australia or whatever it may be. It's actually about the idea of developing that great game style. Because again, we can sort of revert back to Alcaraz as a 13-year-old serve volleying there. It's just, you can see that there's always that sort of probably that growth mindset of these are the key competencies that I need to achieve. And these are the key competencies that I need to be able to do well to play this game at the highest level, because it's critical. And no, I mean, once you play someone who's like that as well, the fear that it creates, it can build so much pressure.
Yeah, and I can tell you that certainly at the Australian Open in the first round earlier this year, Thanasi played with fear. Yes, he was tired, but he played afraid. And there was a little bit of that in the first round of the French Open. So for all the teenagers and younger people watching this, it's not just kids who are afraid of winning and losing. Thanasi is much, much better at playing top 50 players than he is at playing number 200 in the world.
One of the things from a coaching moment as well, it's one of the things that pros do probably typically so well is they just understand that this is a process. Mm-hmm. And we can't win every match. Obviously, and again, probably one of the most coined phrases you hear on the tour is when someone has a bad loss is, well, there's always next week. It literally is what most pros are saying. Okay, well, this is my game. This is my game style. This is what it's about, what I need to work towards moving forward. Because again, when you understand that process and how you consistently refine your game, and I guess that's what I love about our profiling is knowing this is what I'm trying to become, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Yeah. Once you commit to it, you commit to that idea of that game style, that's half the battle. Because then it's a matter of just understanding the process is constantly getting better at it. Because you don't see too many players win matches at the higher level through playing for their opponents to lose.
No, definitely not. The third thing that I wanted to point out about the way Swiatek and Carlos Alcaraz play is how balanced they are when they move around the court. And the same goes for Holger Rune. I pointed out that backhand that he played earlier on this evening. They are so balanced. I may put something, I'll add something to this video when it is published, where when Thanasi moves from his backhand side over transitioning to his forehand side, he gets very lopsided, almost gets to about 30 degrees and leans over to one side to play that forehand. These guys, Swiatek, Rune, Alcaraz, they are so beautifully balanced as they play a shot. And I remember being in Adelaide with Team Thanasi, and the match before him was Iga Swiatek. And even he was fixated on how brilliant she is out of the corners.
Yeah. And it's again, like you can't stress enough the importance of this. I know, because you look at any of the greats, whether it's a Jordan or in basketball, I mean, or in golf, I mean, whatever it may be, is balance is one of the key attributes that you just see the best do so much better.
Yep.
And it's just really, really important. And again, probably to sort of dive in a little bit deeper there, talking about that phrase of that circle of effectiveness. I know where I sort of picked that up, I was actually it was during the French Open one long time ago. I was actually hitting Leighton Hewitt when he was number 2 in the world. I was about probably 250, and I was getting really frustrated. And our Davis Cup coach Wally Mercer was leading the session, and Wally has I love working with Wally. I love talking to him. He's a great wordsmith, and the way he articulates things to really paint a clear picture is so clear. And he just sort of said, look, so I was getting really frustrated. I felt like I was playing great. No matter what I did, it just kept coming back. And we're out at Olympic Park on the clay out the back when they were first built. And he sort of said, well, what part of the court do you feel like you can cover? And he said, draw a circle. So I actually drew a circle on the court, and my circle was actually lopsided. I felt like I was far more balanced out to my forehand than I was to my backhand. As a one-hander, you can obviously see why, and the idea of hitting a quality shot. And he said, well, now tell me about Leighton's. And I was like, it's the whole court. And he goes, exactly. That's why he's number 2 in the world. And I really feel like it's one of those key things where, again, I see it obviously sometimes with our young players, they don't put enough emphasis on how they move and how they actually look to build this element into their game. Because, again, seeing like Iga, seeing her warm up, obviously I saw some social media stuff on what she was doing to warm up, and you can see the level of detail, the level of precision that they use, because again, it just becomes a habit. It becomes, this is who I am, this is what I do. And every day you can just see they're constantly trying to improve in every way. So again, all those sort of things. And I guess in also too, from a training perspective, this is where a lot of training's changed over the years, and how people are working on balance. You see a lot of the balance work that people are doing. I know there's some great stuff out there as well. Even on social media if anyone's interested. I'll try to dig it out for you while we're here. But it's Layla Fernandez's coach. He's a great S&C coach. He's constantly putting things on there, what he's doing with Layla and how they're trying to improve as athletes. So I'll come back on that when I've top of my head, I've forgotten his name, but yeah, really, really important stuff.
All right. Now, for those, I'm thinking that not everybody certainly watched the whole thing, but how did Rafa do it? That was match number 59 between those two guys. And currently Novak leads after this morning, 30-29. Now, I'm absolutely willing to admit here and now that I thought it would have been Novak in 4. Luke?
I just thought it was Novak all day. I really did. Obviously, the time spent on court, I thought 100% it was going to be Novak.
So I want to point out to everybody that this is how important strategy is, and you can work strategy on the fly. You can have a strategy going into a match, and for everyone out there, you know wouldn't know your opponent a lot of the time, but these guys have to work out how to work their strategy and how to combat what the other player is doing, right? And even after 59 matches, there are things that these guys do to make subtle changes to how they play. And on clay, Novak beat Rafa last year at the French Open. Everybody might remember in the semi-final in 4 sets. And the way he did it, I don't actually have any footage of it, but the way he did it was he went hard into Rafa's forehand. So from the backhand side, Novak will go hard into Rafa's forehand rather than keeping him camped in his backhand side. Rafa loves being camped in his backhand side, plays heavy topspin backhands, has a great off forehand, as everybody knows. If you can go whacking hard into his forehand side, he's got such a big swing on his forehand, he takes such big cuts at the ball that Novak really troubled the way he played. The other thing he did at the French Open last year was, because he was hitting that hard ball into Rafa's forehand, the ball wouldn't kick up at Rafa. So Rafa had even less time to get set, and he was playing a ball from lower to the ground. So this is the sort of thing that here we go. So it wasn't just Novak's backhand that he'd go hard to the forehand, but this is the style of play that he used last year. This is from this morning. So he goes hard into the forehand side rather than going into the backhand, because Rafa is so good defensively out to his backhand. So what happened this morning was, apart from Novak didn't play his best, but he was only allowed to play as well as he did. Rafa stood up closer to the baseline, took the ball earlier when Novak went hard backhand cross, and whipped his forehand back up the line. Have a look at a couple of rallies here. There's the hard backhand cross. There's another one, and he ripped it up the line instead. All right. So he was able to regain control of the point by ripping that forehand up the line. It's a really subtle change, but it's a change he had to make. Otherwise, he was getting camped too far behind the baseline and getting into a rally with Novak's hard backhand cross. Here's another one. The hard forehand inside out, bang. Right, and I want to play that again because I want you to look at where Rafa is. Rafa doesn't go this close to base or inside base on his forehand side this often, very often. Now look at him move forward. Takes it earlier and rips it up the line. It is a really subtle change, but it also meant one other thing, which I love. I just love that this happened as well. Novak has a really good drop shot, but because Rafa was standing up closer to the baseline, he was able to nullify or negate the drop shot a little bit, because see how he's standing in closer. and he's able to get up to that was a pretty fine drop shot. And Rafa's still able to get up to a ball that he may not have if he was standing further behind the baseline like he was last year.
Now, Nick, I've got a question for you. Obviously, you can see that strategic shift there from Rafa, which I think is probably, it's amazing. Obviously, these guys have played each other 59 times because, yep. Before talking about that, it's one of the common things I hear so much is obviously parents talking about the player pool and how often they've got to play the same players over and over. I know for me personally, the person who I played the most against on tour was actually my doubles partner because we were the similar ranking band. We were always at the same tournaments with the same coach. Even all my way through juniors, it generally was the same players over and over because you get to the same parts of the tournaments and play each other. But I think it's great to see how they've forced each other to evolve and get to that point, which is great. But do you think this is partially driven by this is a strategic play that I'm going to use in this match? Or is it something to do with obviously all the issues Rafa's had with his body right now, obviously being older? Do you think partially that sort of has been enforced by the requirements of what he needs to do with his body? Or do you think it's because from what I saw early also too, like you could see Rafa wasn't moving near as well. Not near as, he's still moving great. Obviously, don't get me wrong, he's still a great mover. You can tell at his age now, he's lost a step or two. Do you think it was more around the idea of this is the strategic play that I'm going to use, or it's really by design or out of necessity? It's probably a way to ask the question.
Two things would have happened. Number one is that he was coming off a 5-set win against Felix Auger-Aliassime 2 days before. We know his foot's not the best, but it was also a strategic move based on his opponent. It wasn't just something he did because of his foot or because of his 5-set match or to stay fresh or whatever. It was because of his opponent, because Novak, it is fairly well known. It's not just me saying it, that Novak's been going hard into Rafa's forehand side. It's something I recommended that one of the Aussie players do a couple of years ago against him. Go hard into his forehand. Everybody talks about how with Rafa, you've got to keep it away from his forehand. No, you don't. You've actually got to go into his forehand in order to expose the other side. But also because he's got that big wind-up, he loves camping in the backhand side of the court. This was a very strategic move. Yes, because of his foot. Yes, because of the 5-set match. But it was also because of who was up the other end. He knew that if he played like he did last year, he was going to lose.
Yeah, and for those that are sort of unaware, what we're talking about here is the height of the rally. Sometimes what players do to the ball, they try to run the ball, like what a Raducanu does, which probably doesn't get as much jump off the court, or they try to lift it. Obviously, Novak really runs the ball, he shoots it through the court. And if someone's shooting it through on you, it's actually very hard to get enough height off the ball to sort of get it above their shoulder. And that's really that strategic play there, because talking about that strategy with Rafa, he literally wrote about it in his book about how he beats Roger. He literally lifts the ball above his shoulder, gets it a height to Roger's backhand to get a lot of errors, and then obviously take control of the point and to keep him off balance. But it's a really great, because Novak was the one that really sort of changed that dynamic, didn't they? Like he was the first to really come out there and take that on against Rafa. But you can see how a lot of players have tried to follow suit. But it's great to see that after all these years to Rafa to make that tactical change, because I know in the past he's relied on his wheels and he's sort of his endurance, and it's great to see him sort of probably shorten the point and make it a little bit easier for himself.
I just also wanted to point out to everybody, one thing that Rafa is not known for is how good his backhand is. We all know that Roger, for example, has a great end-range slice back cross court. But one of the reasons that Rafa has been so very successful on clay is that he plays short defensive slice and he plays it down the line. Just have a look at this point. So he's now defending. So that slice backhand was not a drop shot. It was a deliberate attempt to play short slice as opposed to heavy cut cross court or a drop shot. It's brilliant defensive play on a clay court to suck his opponent into the net and get the ball that he wants for a passing shot, which in this case he used a lob. One thing I've always noticed on clay, which I do love about the clay courts, is you have to be just that little bit crafty. And it's what Rafa does very, very well. And what I saw this morning was I kept waiting for the I don't know about everybody else. I kept waiting for the Novak Renaissance. When's he coming back? He's going to win this fourth set, and that's going to be it. But no, Rafa's still there. I was just amazed. So the takeaway from that, that's how Rafa did it. The takeaway from that is, don't stick to a strategy if it's not working against a particular opponent. Change the strategy, okay? But the other takeaways from tonight are serving. Work on hitting those spots. We've said it over and over again. Make sure those spots are being hit, first and second serve. By the same token, if you're the returner, don't allow a person who is just rolling their second serve in to do it constantly. Put the pressure on that second serve. All right, work on those 2-4-6 patterns on return to make sure that you're able to break serve and then hit the spots on your second serve. Okay, and the other things that we've talked about, the things that that Carlos Alcaraz, that Holger Rune, that Iga Swiatek are so good at, their movement around the court. They have no fear. Okay, they have no fear, and their shot selection based on not only the shot that they have, but the point that they are in the game, in the match, in the set, is usually spot on. And more often than not, that comes with experience, but these guys have got that experience, and it's really important to play matches in order to get that experience. As Luke said, the number of, back in our day, the number of teenagers in the top 100 outnumbered the number of players in their 30s. All right, so there were more teenagers in the top 100, men's and women's, than there were players in their 30s. Bjorn Borg retired at 26. Pete Sampras, I think, was just over 30. All right. Now we have a situation where, on the men's side at least, around a third of the players in the top 100 are over the age of 30. Okay. So to have these guys coming up as teenagers is just, it's so refreshing. It's great to watch. And I really hope that everybody has a good look at what they're doing, because they've got some great results. Alcaraz in, it was Madrid, was exceptional. He beat Novak in 3. He beat Zverev. I'd urge everybody to have a really good look at not only how he plays, but cover the screen on the other side of the court. Don't look at his opponent. Look at the way he moves around the court and plays his tennis. It's just brilliant to watch.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. And what I'd like to do is, if anyone does have any questions, obviously we'll throw it open. So if anyone has any questions there to ask Nick. But while we're doing it, I know I mentioned obviously talking about the physical side of things. If anyone wants to look up, I know one of the fitness trainers I was talking about there, talking about the movement, which is so important, is just if you want to go on Insta or whatever it is, it's Douglas, as in Douglas, as _fitness coach. He's one of the trainers I know of. He currently works with Dominic Thiem, Fognini, Leila Fernandez, Nakashima, Garin, Vidasco, to name a few. If you even have a look at some of the stuff the pros are doing, it's pretty cool. You can see some pretty cool stuff down there. So something I definitely encourage the players out there to really have a look at. To have a look at. But yeah, if there's any questions, guys. If not, obviously I do know that Nick will be coming out. Yeah, so for those that are here, obviously we've got a UTR 7+ on this coming Sunday, the 5th of June. So really excited to have Nick along, where he's going to be doing some match filming. I know we also have some of our partners in Precision Athletica that are going to be sort of coming across, as well as Chris from Study and Play USA. So really excited to have the sort of the whole all our partners coming out to be part of that, which is really exciting. And also too, Nick, you can probably speak to this better than I can. Obviously, the parent-player workshops that you're starting to do.
Yeah, we're actually doing. I'm doing a tour of the country. We've had great responses in Perth. We've already booked one of our workshops out, and in Melbourne as well. So we're going to 2 in Perth and probably 2 in Melbourne. We're conducting one on the 16th of June. Really happy that Voyager will be down at Willis Park. I've actually just now put links into the chat window. If you're interested in match filming this Sunday, the 5th of June at Sintra Park, I believe, we'll be all over the place, I think, won't we, Luke?
Yeah, correct. Well, we're going to aim to be at Sintra, but if there are other sort of requests, we can look to see how we can cover that.
Yeah. But also have a look. I'll be everybody will see this ad probably on Australian Tennis Community or another Facebook page. I'll be going through, how we worked with Thanasi, what it means for junior players, the stats that matter for juniors, and the ones that may not. But have a look. There'll be plenty of information around about it. We'll be at Willis Park on the 16th of June, parents and players, not just the players. So there'll be some information come out about that. But I put stuff in the chat room, in the chat, about both of those things. So both match filming this Sunday and the parent-player workshops coming up later in June. Yeah,
and again, there's a lot of our Olympic Park Academy athletes that are here. So if you do want Nick to come out and film during the academy times, obviously, is that match filming appropriate for that as well, Nick?
Yes, it is. That page will just, there's a checkbox there. You can check for this Sunday, or you can check during term time, depending on what you need. So yeah, we're happy to do either.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like we've covered a lot there.
Been good fun.
Yep.
I hope everybody gets into the French Open over the next few days, because we've still got Holger Rune in there. Still got Iga going along. She almost looks unbeatable. I wonder if it's been a bit too easy for her so far, and she needs a tough match before the final if she gets there. And I'm sure that Ash Barty is sitting up in Ipswich wondering why she retired.
Before I let you go, who's your pick on the women's side? So
you can't go past Swiatek. You really can't.
I agree.
It's so hard to go past her. On the men's side, you got Rafa's now in the semis. I think Rafa. Oh wow, I don't know what to say. I got it so wrong this morning that I'm really nervous. Who would pick against Rafa these days, Luke? After the final at Oz Open and then this morning.
Well, you know what? I will. I'm going Zverev. I think it's there's going to be a bolter. I know it's bucking all the trends, and I just have a feeling it's the next gen starting to sneak through. I think that's where someone like Alcaraz, times you see how a player coming through and starting to make waves can actually give other people confidence and belief. And I think for someone like Zverev, who's been hanging around near and thereabouts for a while, I think he might surprise the people.
Okay, I think he's going to. I think he'll choke on second serve. There you go.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity, Luke, of speaking to the players, and I'm sure we'll be on again soon.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Have a good night. Stay warm.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.